You're a Roman legionary in the Teutoburg Forest, September 9 CE, and the professional training that destroyed everything you used to be is now the thing that's going to get you killed. You've been marching in formation for 3 days through terrain that makes formation impossible. Your centurion is dead, killed by an arrow you never saw coming. The optio who replaced him lasted 20 minutes. You're still maintaining spacing, still trying to keep the line. Because 16 years of conditioning won't let you do anything else even when doing anything else is the only rational response to what's happening around you. The trees are so thick you can't see more than 20 feet. Germanic warriors appear, throw spears, disappear back into the forest. You can't form testudo properly because the ground is mud and roots and fallen logs. Your shield weighs 20 pounds and you've been holding it up for 6 hours. Your arm is shaking. The man next to you takes a spear through the neck. You step over him and close the gap because that's what you were trained to do. Maintain formation. Close gaps. Keep moving. The training that made you effective in open battle is killing you here because you can't adapt, can't break formation, can't make independent decisions after 16 years of having that capacity systematically destroyed. Here's what professional training actually meant when it failed. You enlisted at 18, farm kid from Campania. The signing bonus cleared your family's debt. Training camp started with sleep deprivation, random wake-ups at 2 a.m., 4 a.m., midnight. Your brain stopped questioning commands because thought became too exhausting. The beatings came daily, not for mistakes, for existing. You learned that punishment isn't connected to behavior, which means you can't avoid it, which means you stop trying and just obey. Month 2 Gladius training. 1 motion, 8 hours daily. Low stab, upward thrust into the abdomen, twist, withdraw, 10,000 repetitions until your arm executes it without thought. You became a component in a killing machine, and that machine worked perfectly when enemies fought the way Rome expected them to fight, standing in formation, engaging in frontal combat, following predictable tactical patterns. Germanic warriors don't fight that way. They appear from trees, strike, vanish. Your training has no programmed response for this, so you keep doing what you were trained to do even though it's obviously not working. The column ahead has stopped moving. You can hear screaming but you can't see what's happening. Water is running low. You haven't eaten in 2 days. Your feet are bleeding inside your caligae, military sandals designed for Roman roads, not forest mud. You're experiencing normal human responses to impossible conditions, fear, exhaustion, desperation, but your conditioning won't let you act on them. Running means abandoning your contubernium. Your training destroyed your ability to prioritize personal survival over unit cohesion. So you stand in formation in the rain, waiting for orders from centurions who are dead, while Germans kill you piece by piece over 3 days. 15,000 professional soldiers, the best trained infantry in the world, annihilated completely. 3 legions that had conquered Gaul, held the Rhine frontier, defeated every enemy they'd faced in conventional battle. Gone. Because professional training optimized you for specific battlefield conditions and eliminated your ability to function when those conditions changed. Watch what happens at Carrhae, 53 years before Teutoburg. You're a legionary in Crassus's army, marching through Mesopotamian desert pursuing Parthian cavalry. Your training taught you to close with the enemy, get inside their reach, use your gladius in the press of close combat. The Parthians won't let you close. They have horse archers who ride in circles around your formation, shooting, retreating, shooting again. You form testudo, shields locked overhead and on sides, creating a protective shell. It works briefly. Then the Parthian cataphracts charge, heavy cavalry in scale armor, lances that punch through shields and the men behind them. You're standing in formation under the sun. No water, arrows coming constantly. You can't advance, the cavalry retreats faster than you can march. You can't retreat, that breaks formation and makes you vulnerable, so you stand, holding position, while Parthian arrows find the gaps between shields. 20,000 Romans die over 2 days. Not in glorious combat. Standing in formation in the desert, dying of thirst and arrow wounds, because your training won't let you break formation even when formation is obviously the wrong tactical choice. The professional army lost because it was professional, optimized for specific conditions, incapable of adaptation when those conditions changed. Crassus's legions were individually better fighters than Parthian horse archers. Doesn't matter, the Parthians fought in ways Roman training had no programmed response for. So Romans did what they were trained to do and died doing it. 4 centuries later, Adrianople, you're a legionary facing Gothic cavalry. Your training is the same training legionaries received at Teutoburg at Carrhae. The methods haven't changed. The conditioning is identical. Break the individual, rebuild them around unit cohesion and programmed responses. It worked for 400 years against enemies who fought conventionally. The Goths aren't conventional. They have heavy cavalry, professional warriors who have been fighting Romans for generations and learn to exploit the predictability of Roman tactics. The cavalry charge hits your line. You're trained to hold formation against infantry. Cavalry is different, the mass, the speed, the height advantage. Your training has responses for this, but they assume you have room to maneuver, support from your own cavalry, time to reposition. You have none of those things. The Gothic charge breaks your formation in the first impact. Once formation breaks, you're not a professional soldier anymore. You're just a man in armor being trampled by horses. 20,000 dead. Emperor Valens killed in the battle. The professional Roman army that had conquered the Mediterranean world defeated by Gothic warriors who learned to fight Roman professionalism with asymmetric tactics Rome couldn't adapt to. Here's what this meant for you, the soldier. Your life ended when you enlisted. You were broken systematically, sleep deprivation, random punishment, forced marches designed to produce physical collapse. You were rebuilt as a tactical component. That rebuilding made you effective in specific conditions. It also made you incapable of surviving when conditions changed. At Teutoburg, you couldn't abandon formation and escape individually through the forest because your conditioning wouldn't allow it. At Carrhae, you couldn't break testudo and scatter to find water because unit cohesion was more fundamental to your psychology than survival. At Adrianople, you couldn't adapt to cavalry tactics because adaptation requires independent judgment your training systematically destroyed. The professional army didn't always win because professionalism meant specialization, and specialization meant vulnerability to anything outside your specialty. Farmer armies are less effective in conventional battle, but more adaptable because they retain individual agency. Professional soldiers are more effective in conventional battle but helpless when battles become unconventional. You survived Teutoburg somehow. Maybe you were in the baggage train, maybe you broke and ran before the conditioning locked you in place, maybe you got lucky. You make it back to Roman territory. You expect relief, medical care, recognition of what you survived. Instead, you get decimation, 1 in 10 survivors beaten to death by their tent mates as punishment for the legion's failure. You survived Germanic warriors only to be killed by your own army because the system that created you can't tolerate failure. That's what professional actually meant, not excellence. Elimination of everything except tactical function, including mercy, including rationality, including the basic acknowledgement that sometimes armies lose through no fault of the soldiers. The professional Roman army won most battles because most battles were conventional, formation against formation, Roman tactical doctrine against enemies fighting in ways Roman training prepared for. When enemies fought unconventionally, forest ambush, horse archer harassment, heavy cavalry shock, professionalism became liability. The very conditioning that made Romans effective made them predictable, and predictability is vulnerability. Professional armies don't always win. They win when conditions match their programming. They fail catastrophically when conditions change because the same training that makes soldiers effective destroys their ability to adapt. Rome built an empire on professional legions, and Rome fell when enemies learned to fight in ways that exploited professional predictability. The soldiers paid the price, dying in formations they couldn't abandon, following tactics that weren't working, unable to make independent decisions because 16 years of training had destroyed that capacity. If you're understanding how military effectiveness actually works, that professionalism creates both strength and catastrophic vulnerability, hit that subscribe button on myth-busting. We're examining historical systems through what they did to the people trapped inside them, not just celebrating victories while ignoring failures. The machinery of military power has always depended on finding ways to break human judgment and rebuild it around institutional priorities, and understanding that reality matters more than comfortable myths about professional excellence. Drop a comment. What other historical military system should we examine by looking at its failures instead of its successes?